What up, sports fans? Waxon Wednesday, Jake Waxman, Tyler, let two guys talk sports. Let's do this. All right, to start things off today, I thought I'd take the time to respond to a hockey analyst who goes by the name Mark Messier. So, the Blackhawks they got their asses kicked by the Florida Panthers 5-1 on Sunday, and Mark Messier he was actually critical of Connor Bedard. So there was a power play where I guess there was a turnover and Bedard had to go back on defense and wasn't and on that power play Reinhart I believe it is so yeah, Sam Reinhart. Okay, so Bedard had to defend Sam Reinhart, who beat him on a goal, so it ended up being a shorthanded goal for the Panthers en route to their 5-1 butt kicking of the Blackhawks. So, to put it simply, Bedard lost a stick battle with Reinhart, and that defeat in the stick battle and a shorthanded goal led to a Panthers 2-1 lead, in which, in that case, the Panthers would not look back. So now, I'm getting a little off topic. So, I'm going to read this from Hockey News. Messier talked about it, this moment in the game, destroying the morale of the team if you don't earn your ice time. And not putting... And Mark Messier said this as well. He said that Bedard should be benched and for not playing better defense or being soft on the stick battle. Messier said that, hey, we got to earn our ice time, all that stuff. And he said that Bedard should be benched for not playing good defense on that play, or should not at least be playing on the power play. Okay, so he said something along the lines of that. All right, I'm going to start off with this. Okay, there's one thing I do agree with on Messier. Okay, Bedard absolutely needs to work on his defense, okay? Got the potential to be a great hockey player, but defense, he needs to improve on defense, like a lot. I don't disagree with Mark Messier on that. Like, Bedard has struggled on defense. And you know what? A lot of young players, or a lot of young forwards, they're going to struggle on defense at the start of their career. And Bedard's no different, who's 19 years old. So, defense needs a lot of work. That's the one thing I agree with. But in like the intermission, he called for Bedard to be benched because he said, like, hey, guys who don't make plays like that, or something along the lines of guys who don't play good defense don't deserve their ice time. So basically, what Messier is saying, and even I've spun it all, and forgive me if I've spun it all wrong, but what Messier is saying is that Anders Sorensen should bench Connor Bedard because he needs to improve on defense, or he didn't make he was soft on the stick on that defensive play. Okay, this is where I disagree with Mark Messier. All right, yes, Bedard needs to work on his defense, but you know what? This was on a power play. Okay, this goal, by the way, I rewatched it. It was not 100% on Connor Bedard. There was a turnover on this shorthanded goal that forgive me, with Reinhart. So Reinhart's shorthanded goal was a result of a turnover, and Bedard did whatever he could to get back on defense. Okay, so he could have been stronger on defense, but it wasn't all his fault. All right, but to say that Connor Bedard should be benched, so the Blackhawks should bench their leading goal scorer on the season because he doesn't play good enough defense. You shouldn't even play on the power play at all. Look, when you're on the power play, you want your best power play unit out there. You want your goal scorers. Bedard's the Chicago Blackhawks leading goal scorer. He needs to be out on the power play. All right? His job, and you know what? He sets up and Bedard, he averages a point a game. That's not bad for someone who's just 19 years old. All right? The thing is, the problem I have with Messier is he says Bedard should be benched because of one mistake on defense, when in reality, okay, yes, Bedard has his shortcomings on defense, as I've said before, but Bedard makes up for it on offense. He's an offensively. You know, he gets a lot of assists. He gets the puck where it needs to be. He's always giving, and more importantly, Bedard is giving it his all each and every game. He's practicing hard. If you want Bedard to get better, on defense. Work with him on defense in practice. That's what Anders Sorensen, I'm willing to bet that's what he's doing. That's what he needs to do, all right? Don't bench a player. Just help him in practice. If you bench him because he doesn't play good enough defense or for one play, that is going to kill a young man's confidence. That will not help. It will kill his confidence. Because you're sending a message that he's not good enough. That's the thing. So, Messier, all right, great hockey player. I respect who he was as I respect him as a hockey player. And I know he's got a lot to say. But you know what? This is a different NHL. And I don't think Messier completely understands what goes on in each NHL locker room, all right? For the Blackhawks, there are bigger problems than Bedard struggling on defense. The whole team is struggling. And you're talking about Bedard's lack of defense killing the morale of a team. This Blackhawks team has no morale. They just don't, okay? There's problem. The Blackhawks have weaknesses all over the place. They're bottom of the NHL, okay? They're not going to make the playoffs this season. They're in a long rebuild. Bedard is pretty much surrounded by almost no one to help him. And he's doing the best he can in the situation that he's in. And I think that all these things that I mentioned, I think Messier is overlooking. Okay, so I will say this. While he's right about Bedard needing to play better defense, saying that he needs to be benched because of this, that's a hard-headed approach, all right? And honestly, I think Messier does not completely understand what's going on with the Blackhawks, all right? It's a full-on rebuild, and you know what? These analysts who say these things, like this, it's like they're expecting Bedard to do it all, okay? He can't do it all. Gone are the days where one legendary player can carry a team. That's not going to happen anymore. Bedard needs help, all right? Yes, he's got things to improve on, but this is where me and Mark Messier disagree, all right? He's not wrong about Bedard needing to play better defense, but to bench him because of one bad defensive play and to say that plays like this, mistakes like what Bedard are doing, like a 19-year-old like Bedard are making, saying that that's killing the morale of the team, he's not quite correct here. The morale, there's no morale with the Blackhawks, all right? That's just what it feels like, especially with Bedard is the least frustrating player on this Blackhawks. Sometimes he does some things that do frustrate me, but there are other players on the Blackhawks that frustrate me way more than Connor Bedard, all right? He's only 19. He'll keep growing, all right? And right now, Bedard's the only reason that the Blackhawks are worth watching. You bench him, oh boy, that you're opening up a whole new can of worms. Like, the fans might even stop going to games if we bench Bedard. Fans who attend the United Center. And Blackhawks fans come out. All right, they travel well, too, to watch Bedard. We right now, just need to get more pieces around Bedard. And that will help him grow, too. Because, yes, coaching is one thing. And, yes, like I said, things to work on. But having good players around him is going to help him. And that's something the Blackhawks really need to do. Instead of benching Bedard, work with him in practice and get better pieces around him in free agency this upcoming offseason, all right? So, this is what I think of what Mark Messier said, all right? He's right about Bedard needing to play better defense, but the rest of what he said, I completely disagree with. All right, sorry, that subject went on a while. So, moving on to my next subject. So now we're going to focus on college basketball, or Big Ten college basketball. I'm going to start with talking about my Purdue Boilermakers. So, at the moment right now, Purdue is 18-5 on the season. They just came off a big win against a nice road win against Iowa. And I'll tell you guys about some things I'm noticing as to why Purdue is got a chance to do some good things this season and why they are where they are right now. Obviously, two players come to mind that for Purdue right now. The first of which is Braden Smith. All right, Braden Smith, he's a junior, clearly the leader of this team, a candidate to be an All-American, Big Ten Player of the Year, maybe even college basketball's Player of the Year this year. We'll see about that. I don't think that's going to happen, but he's got a strong chance to be Big Ten Player of the Year. You know, obviously he does a great job. In the time that he's been at Purdue, he's done a great job of moving the ball around, getting it to where it needs to be, good passes, gets a lot of assists per game, underrated rebounder. He had actually 31 points against Iowa in the last game, so there are games where he scores a lot of points. But the biggest thing I've noticed, the biggest jump that I've seen him take this season compared to last season is the jump shots and the floaters, you know, going inside. He was pretty good at that last season, but this season, in terms of a skill set, he's a lot more lethal inside the arc. Like, those jump shots, like where he jumps back, it's amazing how many of those he's been landing this season. Like, those are tough shots to make, and he's been able to make a majority of them this season. He'll miss a few every now and then, but that's one thing that has really helped Purdue. And that is Braden Smith's progression in the jump shot and the floater shots. You know, the tough shots inside to make, you know. He's become a lot more lethal. Like, he makes those tough shots, no matter how tough they are, he finds a way to make them. And a lot of it's timing and coordination and plus confidence. You know, you got to be able to put the right amount of power onto those jumpers, and as well as positions yourself in the right place, and also all sorts of things that you got to be able to do to make those jumpers consistently. Braden has learned how to nail all that down, like that focus, attention to detail. He has become very lethal on the jump or jump shots. You know, when you need a jump shot, Braden can make them, and that's helped Purdue a lot this season. And that's like Braden Smith. He's going to be a great Purdue Boilermaker. He's already a great Purdue Boilermaker actually, and he's on his way to doing more great things. The biggest jump in his game that I've noticed this season compared to last season is he's a lot more lethal on the jump shot and the floaters. He's making more of those inside shots, you know, those tough jumpers, because they're not easy to make, as for the reasons I mentioned, because you need to have a basketball player who's not just for point guards too, you know. He's a fantastic point guard, but moves the ball around, keeps the offense on their toes as well as the defense, but you know, like I said, the coordination, the focus, you know, amount of power he puts into it, and just the angle of attack, all those things. He has learned how to master that this season, and as a result, he's making so many jump shots, and that's making a huge difference. Not just in Braden's game, but the Boilermakers are a better team because of it. Another thing I've noticed, and another player that has really stepped up this season, and one that I'll admit I'm not too surprised that he stepped up, Trey Kaufman-Renn. All right, when Purdue needs a tough bucket inside, they go to him. He's not Zach Edey. He'll never be as great as Zach Edey, but you know what? He's done a great job stepping out of Zach Edey's shadow. Same with Braden Smith this season. I mean, Purdue has learned how to play this season without Zach Edey, because of course it's the first year without Zach Edey. But I've noticed Trey Kaufman-Renn, he pushes it a lot more inside, and he attacks more. And Purdue, they depend on him a lot to get inside, and thankfully like I said, he's done a good job stepping up and attacking the inside of the paint and making some tough shots too when Purdue needs. And it's also much more physical on defense. The one issue for Trey Kaufman-Renn has been fouls, but not all of it's his fault. But when he can stay on the court, it's tough. And a lot of Purdue's offense goes through Trey Kaufman-Renn. So Purdue's has traditionally been, the Boilermakers have traditionally been one of those teams that likes to feed the ball inside the post and get the center involved and get him to either pass up or take the tough shot inside. I'd love to see Trey Kaufman-Renn admittedly pass more outside. He's doing a great job though when it comes to not only getting the tough shots inside, but helping to keep Purdue's offense in sync. You know, as he goes, the offense goes. Like when he's off the court, I've noticed this Purdue offense struggles without him. So as long as he's on the court as much as possible, this offense has more of a flow to it. And it's not just Braden Smith, but Trey Kaufman-Renn plays a large part in commanding the ball movement on offense as well. Get it to him inside when you know, get it the ball to Trey Kaufman Run inside when you know you got to go, when you know the defense is clamping down on the shooters, or when they clamp down on him, he can make those tough shots and draw those fouls. And good off the dribble as well. So if the Purdue Boilermakers, if they got a deep run in them in March, just like they did last March, if they're gonna make another deep run this year, Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman Run, they're gonna be the two big reasons why. Braden Smith moves that ball around and can hit those tough jumpers when you need him to, as well as three-pointers. And Trey Kaufman Run, when you need the offense to get back in sync, Trey Kaufman Run helps Purdue's offense get back in sync. And he attacks that paint as well and makes those tough shots inside and draws those fouls when you need him most in a physical Big Ten match. And of course, both guys very good on defense too. So, to conclude, how far the Purdue Boilermakers go this season comes down to both Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman Run, and the kind of momentum they are creating for this Purdue Boilermakers basketball team. All right, speaking of Big Ten basketball, so it's February. That means we're one month away from March. So I thought I'd talk about how the Big Ten is looking at NCAA tournament bid-wise going into February. So here's how things look. Right now, the top four in the Big Ten are as follows as of now. It's Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Those are your top four. So Purdue, and in the AP poll, you got 7th, 9th, 24th, and 21st. That's the top four. So those four teams, for sure, they're in. Okay, they are going to be in the big dance. I have no question about that. Those are all great teams. And also, in the mix for that Big Ten title race, we got UCLA, number 18 Maryland, and number 23 Illinois. Those three teams, UCLA, Maryland, and Illinois, they're in for sure as well. Those 7 teams for sure are in. And can't leave out Oregon, who's had a very solid first season in the Big Ten. They as well will be in the big dance. So those 8 teams that I have listed, those teams are for sure in. And then below Oregon, that's where things are going to get a little close. So you got Ohio State, USC. Those are the top 2 below the top 8. So Ohio State, they've got a chance to make this tournament despite the season they've had at 13-9. They got that big win against Purdue. If they can put together a few more, I think they'll be in. So, but got to take care of business the rest of the season. And same with USC. By the way, the Trojans, they play Purdue on Friday. That's going to be a very good game. And this is a USC team that beat Illinois on their home court and beat Michigan State at USC, so in Southern California. So, 2 very impressive wins for the USC Trojans. They might need just a little bit more, but if they can get a little bit more, they can make the tournament as well. So, I would say Ohio State. So, anyone below Oregon that I'm talking about in terms of the Big Ten standings, for now, those are bubble teams. Or some of them are teams that have a good chance of being in, but nothing's a guaranteed yet. So, Ohio State and USC right now, probably bubble teams. Nebraska, they're at 14-8. They got some big wins as well. Also some big losses as well, but compared to Ohio State and USC, I think Nebraska is going to be in. As long as they take care of business, they should be in. Their resume is very, very good. They should be in. You've also got Iowa. Now, Iowa, they got some big wins too, but also they had a couple of losses in a row, so they're a bubble team as of right now. They can still make it, but gonna be close unless they get some big wins. So, sorry, sports fans, I skipped one, and that's Indiana. Oh boy, for right now, just barely, Indiana's a bubble team, and I say that because look, they got a 14-9 record, but that record is deceptive. I think they only have one maybe 2 quad 1 wins. They need more. unless something changes and they start closing in and sealing the deal on some quad 1 wins, Indiana is going to be on the outside looking in come March Madness. Like, that's like, unless they get some big wins, they'll have another opportunity with Purdue at Assembly Hall, along with a few other opportunities, but they got to start winning some of these. They came close with Purdue at Mackey and with Maryland, but they just weren't able to close the deal. And if that continues to happen with Indiana, they're going to be on the outside looking in. So they got a good record at 14-9 overall, 5-7 in the Big Ten, but the lack of quad 1 wins is hurting this IU program. And oh boy, and you know what? It's raising questions about whether or not Mike Woodson should be the coach of Indiana. Other teams I've noted: Rutgers. There's also Rutgers, Northwestern. Excuse me, by the way. Rutgers, Northwestern, Minnesota, Penn State, and Washington. Right now, I don't think it's looking too good for those teams. All of them have teams like Minnesota and Penn State. And Rutgers too. They've had some impressive wins, but some of the losses also really, and their records overall. Rutgers being 11-11, Northwestern 13-2, Minnesota 12-11, and Penn State 13-10. The records are really hurting them at this point. And we got Washington at the bottom of the Big Ten at 2-8 in conference play and 11-10 in overall. So right now, like those teams that I meant, some of those teams can turn it around. I'm just not sure that it's going to happen. Rutgers, Northwestern, Minnesota, Penn State, Washington. I've got a feeling they're not going to be in the NCAA tournament. I don't know. The Big Ten's so tough. Like, Northwestern, out of all those teams, might be able to get out of that funk and find their way to the NCAA tournament. We'll see, though. We'll see, because they just lost Brooks Barnheiser for the season. That's a huge loss for Northwestern. And to finish this topic off, oh, by the way, out of all the teams Big Ten teams I mentioned, the team that I think no one wants to see in terms of the Big Ten is Maryland. They are tough. Glad Purdue beat them when they did, not going to lie. But that Maryland team looks really, really strong right now. And they got a lot of momentum. Speaking of which, so now, in terms of the Big Ten tournament this year, new format, 15 teams qualify. And that means 3 of the 18 Big Ten teams will not be in the new 15-team Big Ten tournament. As of right now, Minnesota, Penn State, and Washington, they are on the outside looking in terms of this Big Ten tournament. At the top, and obviously those bottom 3 teams who don't make the Big Ten tournament, they'll see their NCAA tournament hopes dashed without a doubt. So, a lot of work to do if you're Minnesota, Penn State, and Washington. I've seen Penn State. They beat Purdue earlier, and I figured they might hang around. I thought they'd be higher than where they are at right now, but it just hasn't happened. In Minnesota, Ben Johnson's a good coach. He's doing a great job with the Minnesota Gophers. He's a fantastic coach in an extremely tough situation. The Big Ten is just so tough. So, a lot of work to do for Minnesota as well. So, these are just overall. So, that's how things are looking right now for the Big Ten in terms of tournament bids. So, as of right now, the top 8 in the conference, the top 8 that I mentioned: Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Maryland, Illinois, or UCLA, who's 5th, then Maryland, Illinois, and then Oregon. Those 8 teams, they're going to be in the tournament for sure. The rest, I mean, I imagine there's going to be at least 10 teams from the Big Ten in the tournament, especially due to the fact that the ACC is really weak this year. So, I mean, of course, I think the SEC is going to have the most teams in the tournament. The ACC, as I mentioned, not their best year. But with those factors in, there probably will be more Big Ten teams of course, there'll be more Big Ten teams in the tournament this season than the last due to conference expansion. But aside from the top 8 teams, it's hard to say right now who else is going to make it. I think there's going to be more Big Ten teams, but it's just hard to say who else will join the top 8 teams in the Big Ten in terms of the NCAA tournament. Hard to say at this point. But really going to be an interesting month of February and the March Madness, or the tournaments before March Madness. Going to be a lot of fun to watch. So far, that's how things stand in Big Ten basketball. All right, on to this day in sports history. On this day, February the 5th, 1924, the first ever Winter Olympic Games close at Chamonix, France. All right, sports fans, that's all I got for this week's Waxon Wednesday. Hey, any questions you have, leave them below, and I'll try to answer them in the next Waxon Wednesday. My apologies for not doing a Waxon Wednesday this week. Me and Tyler had that interview with Me and Tyler had that interview with Andrew. Sorry, almost forgot to say. And as a result of that video, I kind of lost track of everything else, and I didn't do a Waxon Wednesday. So, hey, hold myself accountable there. That's my fault. But once more, thank you so much for watching this week's Waxon Wednesday. And this is Jake Waxman from Two Guys Talk Sports, signing off.